Hi, welcome to Mi-Soul for another artist interview. We have with us UK sensation Debra Debs. Welcome along.
Thank you very much.
I feel this is your album, Lifecycles. I feel we should be like sitting like this, so people will actually recognise you. Although it's the right angle.
Yes, it is. It is.
So let's start at the beginning. So when did you start getting into music? What started it all off for you?
I've been singing for years, ever since I was a little girl, and I went to a missionary school where I sang with lots of girls in the choir. And then I came to the UK in 2000 and went to studied a degree in music, and literally that's 14 years now. So
where were you originally? Where did you come from?
I was in Cameroon. I was born and bred in Cameroon. So I came here to study a degree in media and film, but I didn't like it, so I decided I was going to do music. I've been working on the album for quite a few years now, and yes, you've got it.
So when did it first start becoming something that you thought you could do, like release an album and do professionally and stuff, as opposed to just for enjoyment?
Yeah. When I decided to do music in 2000 and a degree in music in 2003, I decided, I'd eventually work on an album, but I didn't know when. So in 2011, come January, I thought, you know what? I've done a lot of things that I wanted to do in life, travel, got a job, and so, now's the right time to start working on an album. Started working on this album, and
because up until then, your profession you're an IT professional, aren't you?
Yeah, weirdly so.
So I mean, could that be a long-term thing for you? Is music where your heart lies? What's the?
It really depends. I mean, this is my first album. It's it's doing very well. It's been well received. So I'm in it for the long haul. I've been doing it over 14 years. So depending on where the album goes, or depending on the reception that I get from the UK and the rest of the world, I'd obviously take it further. But I still got to pay my bills in the meantime.
And it's not easy being an independent artist, is it? So talk to me through that, because you originally started recording in 2011, but you didn't actually release the full album in 2013. So what happened? Because some of the tracks you actually put out in 2011, didn't you?
Yes.
So talk me through that journey.
Okay, so I obviously started working on the album. I didn't know it was going to be called Lifecycles, and a bunch of friends were working with me, helped me out, because I was going to do an album launch. And we kind of decided not to release the album then, because a lot of people didn't know who I was. So why, work so hard and then just give it out for free and not be able to promote it properly. So I released 4 tracks of the album, and got some airtime, got some interest. I took 2012 off because I'd worked on the album all of 2011, and it just took its toll on my sort of psychology, my health. But then 2013, I decided, great, I'm ready. I'm more liberated. It's time to work on the rest of the tracks. And so I got about 8 other tracks ready for the album.
So recording the album was very much a labour of love then, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
And it took, what, a year did it to record that?
Combined, it's taken 2.5 years, yeah. Because some of the tracks I recorded in 2011, others in 2010, but obviously I've had to remix them and sort of remaster them. But it's been over 2 years.
And talking musically, because in the interim, you also did a track, Africa, which was a huge viral hit. And your African roots are very important to you, aren't they? So talk to me about all that. Because this is more sort of traditional soul album. Yeah. But then you've got that other side to you as well, which you obviously did through the Africa song. So
yeah, I'm a bit of a politician at heart, though I don't support any party. But I'm social conscious. A lot of the tracks in the album, like Blending Colours and Daddy and and Africa as well, really out there to speak to people, because a lot of people can relate to the things that I think of, things that I do, and people that I see and meet. My entire being can be reflected in someone else. So a track like Africa was born out of my sort of desperation for Africa, the continent, to be better than it's actually perceived at the moment. We've got lots of resources, lots of labour, lots of intelligence, and yet we're seen as the poorest continent, but we really aren't poor. So the track itself is just a message, to the West, to Africa, to Africans, to Westerners, just to say, this is a great continent, it's beautiful, we can definitely improve ourselves, but it has to start from the leadership through to the masses.
And once you'd recorded it, you then did the video, which then sort of caught fire. So what made you do that video, and how did it sort of go viral, basically?
So in last year, February, my mum said, come to Cameroon. No one knows your music, so come promote yourself. And she put a show together. I did lots of interviews at TV and radio stations, and the director of programs at the national TV station said, "Oh, well, before you go, you sound great. Before you go, why don't you leave us with a video?" And I thought, okay, cool. So I contacted a few friends of mine, and in the space of 2 days, we shot it, gave it to him, and he just played it all day, every day on TV. And then I came here, and I got contacted by the guys at Vox Africa, and they played it all day for months and months. And then obviously had it on YouTube as well, and with the Vox Africa playing across sort of 30 countries, and it'd been bombarded on Cameroonian TV. I just, lots of work as well, promotional work, getting my fans to retweet it every day, tagging people on Facebook and asking them to tag other people. It was lots of work for a few months, but it's a great track. I love it.
I mean, it's done 1.5 million views, which is incredible. And it was a lot of that driven by views by people in Africa then, was?
Around the world, because I've got friends in different parts of the world, like Germany, because naturally in Cameroon, when you finish your your A levels, you kind of try different countries. So I've got lots of friends around the world. So I obviously sent it to them, got them to play it. And it was driven from Cameroon, driven from within the UK, lots of support in the UK, as well as, the rest of Africa.
And was that partly a catalyst to get you to then finish your album? Because that was obviously before you put your album out and stuff, wasn't it? So did that help you, seeing the success you had with that? Yeah,
definitely. It was very encouraging. I thought, okay, well, there is some interest here. But I was quite nervous because the album itself is very sort of soulful, neo-soul, whereas Africa is sort of Afro-soul, a bit more political. And I wasn't quite sure if the album and that track could work together. Yeah. But I mean, the people who've listened to the album have watched the video and they like it and they love it. So it's going to be on there as a bonus track. And
is that the kind of sound you'd like to do more of, the sort of Afro soul sound?
I'm not gonna limit myself to anything. Where the wind blows, I'll just write.
So back to this album, the current album that you've got out. So you put it out just before Christmas, and it seems to have just blown up since then. Yeah. What's been happening? How?
Thanks to you. Do you know what? I can't explain it. It's all I can say is it's a good product, and it's a labour of love. And I just feel blessed because I've got lots of support from UK soul and jazz DJs. Got support from Jazz FM, from BBC, obviously Mi-Soul. And obviously it's sort of built itself around a network of people, if you know what I mean. So, the DJs will pass on to other DJs and pass on to other DJs, and then you get radio interviews and people want to talk to you and want to help you out. So that's the kind of love I've got.
And going through some of the tracks now, Love Galore is probably one of the most popular ones on the album. That's one of the ones you put out originally in 2011. So talk me through that song and how that all came about.
Love Galore, I originally wrote it. I was listening to one of Jill Scott's tracks. I can't remember the name of it, but the instrumental in it was so catchy, and I thought, I really want to write to this, but I obviously can't use Jill Scott's track. So I spoke to my producer and I said, why don't we just work something not similar to this, but something derived from it, if you know what I mean. And we just started jamming on keys, one night, and we came up with the instrumental. I took it home, and I just wrote the lyrics, literally in the space of an hour, 2 hours. But I wanted it to be poetic. I didn't just want it to be, I'm just writing another song. I wanted people to be able to interpret it in their own way, rather than me saying, I love you, you love me, let's go, So, it's a very interesting track.
And another one is Caught Up.
Caught Up, yeah. Caught Up is a personal experience of mine, so hey, I had to put it out there.
And Fizzy Lemonade?
Fizzy Lemonade, that's one of the songs I wrote in 2008. And one of the songs that I've also remixed. So the original was literally a jazzy groove. That's literally what it was. But it's another poetic track. It's about wine, red wine, rosé wine, and soft drinks.
And how involved do you get in the studio process and recording? How involved do you get in the production of it? Or do you just write the lyrics and someone else does the production? How does that work for you?
I do get very involved. It's at the end of the day, it's my product, so I need to make sure that all the different elements that I have to piece together to make a song, I contribute to. So the lyrics, the melody, the production. My producer would normally just come up with an idea and he'll just loop it. He'll come up with 16 bars and loop it and say, "Here's a loop. What do you want to do with it?" And then I'll write to it and I'll say, "Okay, well, I'd like a bridge. Can you put these chords on?" So I'll play some chords on there and say, just add these chords, and he'll just take it to another level. Other times he'll just send the loop, I'll write to it, and he'll just change it up.
And you mentioned Jill Scott earlier. Who else are your influences? Who's influenced your musical journey to get to this place?
My love for neo-soul started with Erykah Badu. I think in 97, 98. I heard On and On, and I thought, wow, this is a different sound. I want to sing like her. You've got Music Soul Child, Jaheim Maxwell, D'Angelo as well. I'm a big fan of Lauryn Hill, so that's kind of the soul part of it. But I grew up listening to people like Smokey and Elton John and Michael Jackson. So my influences come from a different range of sounds, if you like. But in terms of my singing and what I love to sing and how I represent myself, I think soul, neo-soul is mine.
And have you got any African music influences as well?
I listen to lots of African music, but I don't speak any African languages apart from English. Well, English is not African. Well, English and French are the only languages I speak. But I don't speak any other African languages or any African languages, unfortunately. So I can't. If I wanted to do what the musicians in Cameroon did, I can do it. But there are musicians like Richard Bona, Manu Dibango, who I really love. But they sing in other dialects, but they do soul, Afro, jazz as well, and they're top musicians. So those are my sort of Afro soul influences. But yeah, I'm not going to restrict myself to getting into that field.
And then talking about live, and you're doing MusicConnex live. You've done a few shows. We haven't done that many live performances today. Is that right?
I've done quite a lot.
Okay.
It's I did quite a lot last year. Lots of award shows like Music Awards, British Young Business Awards. They're sort of niche award shows. But in between 2008 and 2010, I did lots of open mics, lots of them. And then I just thought, I'm tired of doing open mics, I might as well just release my own album. But yeah, so that's...
You're quite keen to develop the whole live side of what you do, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean that's really. That's I don't know how to term it, but for me, that's what music is about. Being there with the audience, performing, vibing with the crowd. Recording can be a bit painful because you've got to get all your notes right. You've got to sing correctly. You're stuck in a studio in a booth for like 9 hours, and you're, oh my God. Whereas when you're on stage, you just got people feeding off each other's energy. So that's really where I wanna live.
And where's this all going for you? What would you like the future to hold for you?
Touring. Touring the world. Selling my album, gaining lots of fans, people adding themselves to my mailing list, and just staying in touch and following me on Twitter and Facebook and all that jazz. But really building my brand as an artist and working on new albums. One
of the things that you've done, which increasingly lots of artists are doing now, is you've done this all yourself. You've self-released, you put the album out yourself.
Yep.
To anyone who's thinking about doing it or wants to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give them?
Always have a plan B. Yeah, it's quite expensive, and sometimes you throw so much money into a hole and not see any benefit from it. So that's the painful part, but you've got to keep pushing. Eventually you're going to build a network of friends and people help you out, and people work on your album with you, and people write with you. And that album was designed by a friend of mine for free. So just keep pushing. If you really, really believe in yourself, you just have to keep pushing it. And eventually, you're going to see some benefits from it.
And you've got your own band as well, haven't you? Who you can play live with. And how do you go about getting a band together and all that sort of stuff? How's that?
It started from years ago, like, the open mics that I did back in 2008. My pianist, my keyboardist, Tony, I met him through a guitarist who was doing a show, and I was performing for the guitarist. And I said to him, "You're going to be my keyboardist." And he was like, really? But then he introduced me to someone else who introduced me to the bass player, and I met the drummer through other people. So that's just how I put the band together. I've performed with lots of other people, other musicians, but for me, these guys they sound good.
And it's interesting to hear that you kind of really started this journey in 2008. We're now in 2014, and your album just been released. So it really shows that the persistence and determination you had is now starting to pay off, and you're starting to see the rewards from that. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, how does it feel now after all those years of sort of building up towards that, and now having your album actually out, and people enjoying it and appreciating it and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, no, I'm really proud of myself, because there were days when I wanted to give up, and I thought I might as well just carry on being a business analyst. You know, I love my IT world, but when you're a musician, you can never run away from the music. Like, it'll keep hunting you down, and it will eat at your. It would just eat your very being, and I couldn't let go of it. So I thought, I'll just get the album out, see how it goes. And all I did was just put it on Bandcamp. That's literally what I did. Bandcamp, iTunes, go for it. And so I'm just blessed.
Well, thank you for putting it out, and thank you for coming to Mi-Soul.
Thank you for having me.